All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Go ahead and call the meeting to order, this February 20th Committee of the Whole meeting, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Smith.
Present.
Councilmember Stallings. Here. Councilmember Marsh.
Here.
Councilmember Crabtree.
Here.
Councilmember Craig.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Sumner. Councilmember Meek.
Here.
Councilmember Bogard. Councilmember Velez.
Here.
Councilmember Bell.
Here.
Councilmember Drought.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, if you would stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 4 on our agenda, approval of the minutes. The minutes were in your folder in your packets.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any conversation about that? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes. Administrative matters, number 5, HWEA lead and copper rule update, Mr. Daniel Lancaster, and, you're switching it up. Sorry, Mr. Derek Watson.
That's not Daniel Lancaster.
Thank you, Mayor Knight, council, distinguished guests. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight to talk about the lead and copper rules. For any of you who were on council last year, we came in September and gave you an update on where we are in administering that rule. Daniel Lancaster is our last time we left, talked to you in September, we talked about our process of visually verifying all the lead, all of the service lines in our system. That was about 18,000 service lines. Let's go back and go through, and we did go through all of those.
And the good news is on that, we did not find any lead service lines in our area. We visually verified everything that we couldn't say was after 1988 during the lead ban. We went and looked at that. That included both HWEA-owned service line and customer service lines. This is all part of the requirement from the lead and copper rule revisions that we had to come up with this inventory and submit it. And we did submit that inventory on October 14th of 2024. And to give you it's a difficult rule to kind of understand. And so I think this visual helps a lot. The service line is composed of both the HWEA owned side and the customer owned side. And part of our inventory, we were looking and identifying the material on both sides. And so when we start talking a little bit more, what we're mainly talking about is the customer side as being some galvanized issues. We heard back from the Division of Water after we submitted our inventory on January 20th. And what they asked us about is, even though that we verified we had no lead service lines, they wanted further proof that there were never any lead service line upstream of some customer-owned galvanized lines. And there were about 5,000 of those that they needed additional verification. You know, our conversation with them was that we looked in 18,000 meter boxes. If we ever had a lead service line, we thought there would be one that we would have found. And their response to us was, if you don't have the original plans with the original materials as it went in the ground, then you can't say that it was never replaced with something different after that. And so that left us with about 5,000 customer-owned galvanized service lines that we would need to notify our customers of. And galvanized piping, it's not made of lead, but it's a concern because over time it can degrade, it can scale, and in that scale, if there was ever lead upstream of that, it can be trapped inside that scale. And if that water line was disturbed, if it was cut, if it was broken, it can release whatever is trapped inside that service line into the drinking water. And to give you a little bit of a visual, this next slide, this is not one of HWEA's service lines, but this is a image just got offline of a galvanized service line. You can see inside of there, there's some rust and there's some scale, and that's a concern the EPA has with galvanized line. Not that they're made of lead, but that in that scale that there potentially could be lead from a service line upstream that may have been lead, in the 20s or 30s, that's still trapped in that galvanized service line. So after the Division of Water notified and here's a map of the outline we drew of 1935 Hopkinsville. And a red dot there is a galvanized service line of a customer that we are unsure of if it was ever historically downstream of lead. And so as council people, most of that is in Ward 1, Ward 9, and Ward 12. There's some other wards that go in there too, but this is your historical Hopkinsville. Anything, of course, before 1935. Also includes some areas of Crofton and Pembroke that we just didn't have a lot of records on. And so part of the key dates, some of the deadlines we've got to meet. By next Thursday, we need to have our customers notified of mail. What that mail is going to say is just what I've told you, is that your service line is galvanized. We're unsure if it was, at this point, if it was ever downstream of lead. You may be at risk. So before we sent those out, that was kind of something that we wanted to bring to you all. We're expecting to field a lot of questions from those customers, but you all also might receive some of those questions, and we wanted to give you some information on that. One of the other key dates is 11/01/2027. There's another rule that will take effect then, and it's going to require us that anything that we haven't ruled out by then, we're going to have to start replacing service lines, and also some more rigorous testing and some lower action levels for sampling. And so part of our next step, this is a sample mailer that we're going to send out to our customers. Almost all of this wording is required wording by the EPA to put in there. And so we'll start sending those out maybe tomorrow or Monday by the latest to our customers. Of course, it's got a QR code that will take you to our website for more information. It's got a lot of language in there about lead and service lines, and of course, of our contact information. For our next steps, after we get these mailers out, we're going to look at a lot of historical documents. We're going to try to take that 2,000 service lines and rule out any of them that we can by records. That picture on the right is one of our ledger books. We have these ledger books back to the 1800s when HWEA first started, but not all of them say what kind of service line material went in. And so the picture of that one says copper. Those are good records. Thankfully, we have those on some of them, but most of them just have an address or a location and what size, but they don't specifically mention material. And so we're going to use these in some PVA records, any kind of as-built plans we can, and just try to reduce those 2,000 to as low as we can. Part of that we're going to work on is preparing a replacement plan for any that can't be ruled out by that 2027 date. And as a general reminder, these postcards aren't saying that HWEA has done anything wrong. We haven't had any kind of violation. It's just a requirement of this rule that if we have a customer with a galvanized service line that we can't verify, that we've got to notify them. There's not any kind of detectable level of lead leaving our treatment plant. There's no current lead service lines in our system. Our water chemistry, part of that, we add a polyphosphate. That's a corrosion inhibitor that prevents any kind of lead from leaching into the drinking water, even if there was a lead service line. We do monitor for lead and copper since the 90s, and we've been in full compliance with that since the rule went into effect. And we'll continue to monitor and give you all updates as we have them, so that you all, will be able to field any kind of questions that your constituents have for you. Any kind of questions or comments from me on that?
Do I have any questions? I'll ask one. So
Yes, sir.
you said there's about 2,000 letters going out.
Yes, sir.
What if somebody calls and says, I want to look into this? Are you all helping camera the system at all, or is that their responsibility?
Well, so we, as far as helping the customer, if they call us, we can give them some advice on having it tested.
Okay.
As far as camera, there are some cameras that will go on a water line, but the EPA has recommended against those because they could bump the line and disturb it, and if there
Sure.
was lead,
Knock it off.
they could knock it off.
Mhm.
Right, and so, we'll work with there. I think most of our phone calls will be from people that are just unsure about even if they didn't get a postcard. And through all this work, we can tell you what your service line is with a database, even if you don't have a galvanized. So, I think people that will call in with questions will really want to know what their service line is and kind of what the next steps are.
I just remodeled the house, and so when you turn the water on, if there's rust coming out of your
Oh, yeah.
spout, that's probably galvanized.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
would guess so. And, even
That's
a
a
lot of
real
newer
deal.
houses have galvanized, and as they get older, they all
Yeah.
tend to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Yeah, thank you all.
All right. Up next, insurance update from the dream team of Mac Major and Lee Conrad. And Kenny Gerbara.
While Mac's getting ready, I'll just come up here and say.
Mac's always ready
We
to talk.
requested this meeting just to kind of prepare you for the next budget. There are some issues Mac's going to talk about that we need to address, and that's why we want to go ahead and do it now, just to get you guys prepared for that for the upcoming budget.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Mac Major. I'm partner at Higgins Insurance, and I spend all my time working with employee benefit programs, specifically employers. I've had the honor of working with the city of Hopkinsville probably for 30 years on its benefit program, and I treat it as if it's my own, and I watch it as closely as Melissa does on a weekly basis almost. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. It just seems like I was here just the other day. Sorry. But as Kenny has alluded to, I think it's very important that we get more transparent about the health benefit program, especially since we've got some new faces, new council representation in the room. Just for your sake, and pardon me, for some of you senior folks, just a little to catch you up, a little historical perspective. The city of Hopkinsville sponsors a self-insured health insurance program, meaning basically it's established an insurance company to provide health benefits to city employees. We've hired Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield to administer the plan. We've hired Anthem Blue Cross to reinsure the plan in case there's catastrophic loss individually or catastrophic loss collectively. So we do that so that everyone in the room can sleep at night. Those costs are fixed, and they represent about 20% of your total spend. 80% of your health spend is in claims. And over a 30-year period, we've had some really, really great years, and we've had some really not so great years. But the one thing that I can tell you with 100% certainty, every year we go to the marketplace and we look at traditional and fully insured plans, like most of us purchase, to make certain with what we're doing is in the best interest of the city of Hopkinsville and its participating employees. And I can tell you with confidence that although sometimes it can seem like we're on a roller coaster ride, this is the most cost-effective way to fund the health plan. Now, over the last 3 years, it's been sort of a rough ride. This is about a 10-year perspective on kind of what our costs look like on a per employee basis. I'm going to annualize a couple of these years to highlight the financial impact of sort of what's going on. Fixed costs, as I indicated, are the administrative costs that Anthem charges to administer the plan. And it also includes the costs to reinsure the plan in case of catastrophic loss. Claims costs are paid medical and dental claims in the self-funded program. In 2024, our fixed costs were $234 per employee per month. Our claims costs were $990 per employee per month, totaling $1,200. Well, we funded $978 per employee per month, which creates a deficit spending of about $246 per employee per month. If you look over the course of time, I mean, it's our worst year ever. Sort of what's driving that? One members in 2024 have claims in excess of that extra. So steep. It's almost impossible to predict because that 31 could be next year. It'll be someone else. Very few of these are ongoing claimants year after year. If you'll turn the slide, here's what we try to protect. When we have good years, the money that we're funding into the program stays with the city of Hopkinsville. That's one of the benefits of being self-insured is when you have good claims years, you're not sending that money to the insurance company. You're retaining that. Well, in 2024, at the end of the year, we had $403,000 in reserves to help us offset deficit spending moving forward. In January, the good news, we had a good January, and that health trust balance increased about $20,000. That's, we do somersaults when we see that, but we can't expect that that's going to be the trend. I mean, the trend historically has said it's going up. If you'll turn the slide, in the last 3 years, when I annualized what the deficit looks like, in 2022, our deficit spending based upon total participation was a little over $400,000. In 2023, it was $400,000. In this past year, a whopping $700,000. So over the course of time, we have found ways to fund the deficit. Lump sum injections, the city has put more money in the program. But if this path is going to continue to trend upwards, I just don't know where city of Hopkinsville continues to find large six-figure sums to lump into the program. So if you'll turn the slide, this is probably the most important one. Does the city of Hopkinsville have a cost problem? What this here is what I call a peer review. We help other public large employers in Hopkinsville with their benefit program, and we track Three things. We track their cost. We track what does their benefit plan look like? And what's the contribution approach? How much are you asking the employees to put in, and how much is the employer putting in? The city's, the highlighted column, the cost, $1,224 in our worst plan year ever. Well, when you compare that to your peers in this town, it's below the average. So when you compare yourself to your peers, your costs aren't out of line. Your benefit percentages, you offer 2 health plans to the city of Hopkinsville. The higher that number is, the better that health plan is. The city of Hopkinsville uses this health plan to recruit and retain good people. You got one of the best health insurance plans in town, and you ought to be proud of it. So your benefit plan's as good as anybody's. Your cost is a little below average. Your contribution approach tells me this. Your employees are putting in 16% of the total cost of the health spend. And the employer's putting in 84%. But when I compare what the city employees are putting in compared to some of your peer groups, it's high. What the city is asking its employees to put into the plan is on the high side of what your peers are doing. The city's just benefited for decades on really, really good low health spend. Well, that's sort of caught up to us. So the city's having to fund these deficits with lump sum injections into the plan. So unless we can continue to use this lump sum approach, I think we need to give serious consideration when we're doing budgeting for the next fiscal year, that we have serious discussions about putting more money into the program on a per employee basis, so that we don't have to continue to dig ourselves out of huge holes that are probably inevitable based upon trends that we see over the past 3 years. But it's a big number. I mean, if we run at a $246 deficit again in 2025, and we don't change the funding, we're looking at depleting the $400,000 of reserves and finding $350,000 from somewhere. And I just don't know if that makes good sense or not. So my recommendation would be to give serious thought into, let's just increase the contribution on a monthly basis so that it's consistent. And here's the good news. If you're contributing money to yourself in this self-funded arrangement and your claims improve, that money's not going to the insurance company. It's staying here in your reserve account as an asset of the health plan. So I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you exactly what your spend's going to be in 2025. I don't, but I think we need to prepare ourselves to fill that gap that's probably to come. Any questions?
Any questions for Mac?
Wait.
Yes, sir.
The 16%, you're saying that's the employee contribution?
That's
here,
correct.
and that's higher, as I'm reading across there.
That's exactly right.
So our employees are already paying more compared to
that's
what
exactly
you've done
right.
here. Out of these comparison groups, or any of these other 5-year government entities?
They all are.
They all are? Okay. Thank you.
They all are. They're all municipalities or public entities.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
I mean, this is the time for questions. We all have questions. We're not the ones, on the operational side. My question would be to the mayor and the city manager, or the city administrator. Where do you propose these funds would come from? And have you thought about a percentage that we might increase?
And you'll see, Melissa and I have been talking about an increase in the amount in the next budget of the next budget. Well, we can get into that.
Well, I think this is something the city council has to consider, so I'd make it.
We will be bringing these in the budget cycle.
We are looking into that, seeing where we're at, where we're not, because Mac has brought this to us, and we've been looking at it, scratching our heads, how do we can't put any more on the employee, because like he says, we're already higher than any others out there. We looked at that. Melissa's looking at the numbers for us to give us an answer, where we might get it from, so we can bring it back to you.
I see. So this wouldn't really require any action on our part to send it to the council until you come back with some information?
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
discussion during budget time.
Yes.
okay, I got you. I think it's important, though, if we could maybe keep it in front of folks, especially the employees, that whatever percentage, and it looks like, if we could start working toward the 90 percentile mark in our employer contribution, that would be commensurate with some of the other folks that are there, even if we did it a couple of percentage points a year or something like that, we just really let them know we're doing this because we appreciate what you do. We just really want to keep that in front of them because they.
Just
makes
one
a
point
difference.
with regard to employee contribution, and I'm taking up too much time and I apologize. Honestly, I can't remember the last time that we went to the employees and increased their contribution. And it's been 10 years. I mean, it's been a long time.
It's been
And
about 13 or 14 years.
they do
What
great.
you did as a council is balance up their pay. We've been very clear to the
Right.
employees, you can't expect a 6.5% pay raise. We're focusing on health trust.
Right, right,
So we'll discuss that and bring it back to Higgins.
right.
But looking at that 16%, that doesn't look like that's the option, making the employees pay more.
No, not
Mm,
enough.
no.
Make
That's
them
not the
employee
answer.
know.
Absolutely
I
not.
mean, government has been privatized.
Yeah.
So these are the things we've got to do to be competitive in terms of health trust. Because dollars to donuts, this is a high quality health insurance and it's still a very reasonable rate.
And I've said this 100 times in front of you all. We don't have a cost problem. We have a funding challenge. And we just have to overcome it.
Any other questions for Mac? Yes, sir.
So I've got two questions. How many total employees do we have? And number two, of those total employees, how many of them are taking the insurance? I mean, I'm sure some don't.
You have 250 right now that are participating. How
Okay,
many full-time eligible do you have? 300.
okay,
So you got 50 that are waiving it,
okay.
of which the city of Hopkinsville provides them a different benefit for having other insurance.
Right. Okay.
Well, as you said, Mr. Mayor, you don't have a crystal ball. We don't have, but I pray and I look forward to the fact that hopefully our inflation rate will go down
So I
considerably.
can tell you this, if last year when we quoted the benefit program in the traditional fully insured marketplace, those programs were in excess of $1 million more than where we landed at the end of the year. So the only benefit that traditional insurance brings you is predictability. The problem is it's $1 million more.
Mhm. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
We'll go into item number 6, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so.
Hey, hold on.
Oh, Lee.
You got
my
Lee,
bad.
man.
I thought he was. You're awful quiet back there.
All right. Well, I will be brief.
My bad.
First of all, to echo what Max said, thank you all so much for the opportunity to partner with you. It's one of my favorite accounts that I work on every year. My name is Lee Conrad. I handle the property and casualty insurance for the city of Hopkinsville and thoroughly enjoy working with your staff and everything. Unfortunately, we've worked together a lot on claims the last couple of years, but that's why you pay the premiums. So the first thing I want to do is, we have 7 new council members. I don't want to assume anything. And so if this feels a little rudimentary, please forgive me, but I don't want to take for granted that you guys understand or appreciate exactly how the insurance works for a public entity and quite frankly, for you all individually as public officials. So we'll start with the property and casualty insurance. There's a whole lot of similarities to your home and auto policies like you have at home. If you have a sump pump that doesn't work down in the basement and you have a flood, you've got some insurance for that. If you have a car wreck, just the same as your home and or as your auto insurance pays for any liability you have or any damage you need repaired. Where we get a little bit different for a public entity, even different from a business, is the different types of risks you have that are unique. The first being law enforcement liability. So law enforcement is a very unique risk. It's in the world of insurance, one of the most challenging things to insure right now. If it doesn't take you to watch the news for just a few minutes to see time and again law enforcement officers, law enforcement agencies sued and sued and sued and sued, and you hear about the large payouts and that sort of thing. The one thing that the city has going for it, and if the legislature ever tries to switch jails from the county to the city, you all need to fight like heck to keep that from happening, because if you have a jail, it is nearly impossible to get a standard market insurance policy right now. So again, I will reemphasize that. Police departments are tough enough. If you had a jail, it'd be a complete nightmare. It is really, really tough. Even if you're a private business that does any kind of work for a jail or provide a service in a jail, they scrutinize you very hard because they seem like they're magnets for really bad lawsuits. When it comes to you all and your staff, there's a coverage. If you serve on a nonprofit board or even a board for a business, you probably have coverage. You've heard it before, called directors and officers coverage. For a public entity, you all have what is called public officials coverage. And I call that, I don't like your decision insurance, okay? Notice I didn't say you made a bad decision. It's just if somebody doesn't like the decision you made. The analogy I'll use sometimes, or the example I use, is I call it the pink hair example. If the city council decides to tell anybody with pink hair they can't buy a house in Hopkinsville, the people with pink hair sue you because they don't like that decision, that's what would defend you and pay any associated claim with that. So rest assured that, I'm not daring you all to do anything untoward or crazy, but if somebody doesn't like a decision, and we've had a couple of examples of that in the last few years, where they decide to lawyer up and file a suit because they don't like a decision that the city made or the council made or some other entity made associated with the city, then that's the coverage that defends you for those decisions. Very, very important. Next, we move on, and everybody who has an employee in the Commonwealth of Kentucky has to buy workers' compensation insurance, even just one employee. Your all's workers' comp works just like the private industry, any kind of a private business does. If somebody gets hurt that's working on behalf of the city, this is the insurance that pays their wages while they're out of work and for the medical bills. Fun fact, I think I saw one the other day. The most common workers' comp claim for the city of Hopkinsville is a dog bite. Councilman Sumner, Councilman Meek are probably keenly aware of that, but it seems like the plurality of claims are dog bites. So I do want to emphasize there, and this is really important, the ebbs and flows of the insurance market and the property and the auto, the public officials, law enforcement, you guys are subject to a lot of those ebbs and flows. You all could be perfect, and because of things that are going on around the world or in the country, you could be negatively impacted by that in terms of the premiums you pay or the amount of insurance you can buy. Workers' compensation is the one line of insurance that you all have the most control over the cost. And so that's why safety is so important. Obviously, we want to protect the human lives, but also the cost is directly impacted by your all's ability to maintain a safe workplace. So I would commend Troy, the mayor, and all of your staff for having a safe workplace. And I'll illustrate how that's saving you money here in a minute. And then finally, cyber liability. A couple of years ago when I gave this presentation, I talked a lot about how the cyber liability market was in complete disarray. We were concerned about the ability to even buy the coverage. And the city is a good example of why that market has calmed down so much. You all over the last couple of years, Mr. Anderson, who is in the back there, spent a lot of money and put a lot of effort into cybersecurity. the things that drive us all crazy, like the multi-factor authentication, you have to download an app, all the stuff that drives us crazy has prevented those kinds of claims from happening as much. And so we've seen actually costs come down and the ability to buy the insurance improve a little bit. So that's a bit of good news. Next slide, please. This last year, you all went to bid for your insurance. The timing could not have been worse, quite frankly, because this globally, the insurance marketplace on property and casualty outside of workers' comp was terrible. And then the state of Kentucky, as we are all very much aware, our weather patterns have shifted. We've had terrible, terrible years with property claims. And then when we drill down even more, public entities are having a tough time for illustrations that I've noted before. So we actually only got one other bid. In Kentucky, there's probably 5 or 6 markets, standard markets for city insurance, let's call it. We only got one other bid, and it was from the Kentucky League of Cities. It was high, and then they also sublimited some coverages that would have given you less insurance than you currently have with Tokyo Marine. So you guys stuck with Tokyo Marine. We are going to look at potentially going out to bid again this year. We typically do it every 3 years. We may do it again this year just because we knew going into last year it was a very, very tough insurance market. It has improved a little bit, particularly on the property side of things. And then your workers' compensation. And so I'll wrap up with this. Workers' compensation insurance, you will see a downward trend in your premiums. That is not happening on accident. You've got 2 numbers there. You've got the big 6-figure number that's your premium, and then to the right of it, you see something that says mod. Some of you all may be aware of what a mod rate is. If you don't, that is how you are compared to other like businesses, or in your case, public entities. So in Kentucky, those class codes that go into a city government, police officer, firefighter, the administrative, there's one that's cemetery workers, there's one that's street sweeping. So you've got about 10 different codes. You're compared to if you're above a 1, it means for the last 4 years have received a 1%, a 21%, a 40%, and this current year, a 21% discount. And that's an independent agency called the NCCI that calculates that. And so you guys are saving over the course of time hundreds of thousands of dollars because you run a very, very tight ship. It's a safe environment. You all employ a safety consultant that more than pays for itself. And so you all are to be applauded for that. And then finally, the cyber liability. We renewed with Chubb again this year. A couple of years ago, we did increase that limit again because Mr. Anderson was able to get some good cybersecurity measures in place, and that premium is holding steady right there. So with that, I will take any questions.
So the asterisk, excuse me for asking, on that previous slide, the asterisk actually applies to the bottom of the workman's compensation 2024 premium. Would only extend $1 million of law enforcement liability.
Oh, no. So I'm sorry. The asterisk on the workers' comp, I should have deleted that. I apologize.
Okay.
That was in front of what we had estimated for 24. That is your actual premium. Above that, so KLC, I was just illustrating with the KLC quote,
Right.
that not only were they more expensive, but they were going to give you less insurance for more money, which obviously was not a good
Would be
thing.
$1 million per claim, per incident.
Yes, it would have been
Per
a million. Right now you have.
What do we actually have now?
You have 9 million.
9 million, okay.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
We wanted to work
Yes, he does.
And I work with KLC. I love working with them. They're great people. Mr. Cheney, Jeremy Baird, who runs the insurance program, great people. And I mean, Mr. Wellen, Mayor, myself, a lot of people tried, and it's just, you know, some cities are, and we're seeing more and more the scrutiny on law enforcement liability itself is just, it's just tough. And they've cut limits for other cities. It's tough. Yeah. Yeah. Just one here,
Yes,
just 1 minute. You notice on those numbers, it talked about the 2019, 2020 premiums and the mod rate being above a 1. That really dealt with 2 serious injuries to our police officers. And that's why those rates went above 1 for those years.
right.
Yeah. We had 2 catastrophic claims that were really tough, but for the things you all can control, you do a phenomenal job.
I think we could probably all say we really like the KLC people. We just want more benefits.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Understood.
Any other questions?
Questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I apologize for skipping you.
Oh, you can do that anytime
I
you
can't
want
say
to.
it won't happen again, but I'll try better. All right, next unfinished business. We have no unfinished business. We'll go to number 7, new business. Call on Melissa Clayton for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant.
All right, so we're going to be applying for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. Our financial policy handbook requires that we bring any grant match to you before we apply for the grant. So before we apply for the grant, we will bring it to you if we have a grant match. If there is no grant match, we of course apply for the grant without having to bring it to you. But we're going to apply for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant. The total project cost is $309,750. There is a 20% match. Which is $61,950 if we were awarded the grant. And we are just looking for you guys to forward this on to council. Well, I'll take any questions if you have them.
I'll make a motion that we forward this to council.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'll say, when we get a 20% matching, it's, and it's that size, it's a considerable amount of money. Obviously, we don't pay it unless we win the grant, but the bottom line is it's still, a considerable amount of money, so.
Way more for it though.
Chuck?
Yep.
What is a Class 5 brush truck?
So we would use it not only for a rescue truck, but we'd also use it for wildfires and stuff like that. We actually burned, I believe it was 12 acres in the city of Hopkinsville last year for those types of fires. So it would be something like that. It would also be able to be used in storms, drive through storm debris, stuff like that. Sorry. Did you catch all that?
Yeah.
We did, but nobody else did.
So it would be used for several different things. It would be used for rescue, be used during storms, drive through storm debris, be able to off-road. We actually had several acres of wildfire burned last year, so it'd be something used for that.
Class of that truck match like a push hog, like Class 2, Class 3, Class 4, Class 5?
Well, no, it's because it's a fire apparatus. It's the class fire apparatus it is. It has a smaller tank on it, but off-road capabilities and the firefighting class.
What size brush would that basically
Uh, significant. We would be able to take it into fields or anytime that there's trees down, we'd be able to get to anywhere we need.
Okay.
I'd be welcome to send y'all what we were looking at.
Sure.
I just want to know what it was for a vote.
Okay, any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And back to Melissa on the EDF grant.
Right, so as I just mentioned, we normally bring you guys the grant match ahead of time. This grant had extenuating circumstances in the fact that we did not find out about the match until after we already had been awarded the grant. So the grant match for This was a $7 million EDF grant that we got from the state of Kentucky for the infrastructure at Commerce Park 2. It required a $4 million match. And City Council previously passed several MOs relating to the $4 million match. And so now we are in the grant closeout phase, and we need $204,130,000.34 in order to close out this grant. I'll be happy to answer questions if you guys have them.
Any questions?
You know, we come in here, we're not as intimately aware and familiar with finances as you are. We look to the mayor and the administrator, you, to answer the question, do we have it? That's the question. Do we have it?
Yes, we do. So our grant matching fund, we are allowed to keep, there's an MO, and I can send that to you guys later if you would like, $250,000 in our grant matching account. We also budget each year, there's a budgeted line item for grant match. The fund is not allowed to go over 250. So we have 250 in it right now that we can use towards this grant. And then we have some money budgeted in this year's budget to replenish the grant match fund if needed. So yes, we have the money setting in the grant match fund. So it would not require a budget amendment. It just requires you guys to pass the MO for us to close this grant out.
So I think it's good for us to remind ourselves and let folks at home that may be watching know those, those things. So that's good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just to double check, Melissa, but these funds are actually used for the roads and the rail spur
Yes.
in Commerce Park.
Yeah, it was the design and construction of the rail spur. We were also able to use some of the funds for the rail spur connection. That was $625,000, and we paid $475,000 of that. And then the grant also covered the Ascend right-of-way that we passed in December. It was $259,000. The state did reimburse us. So we've received all the reimbursements back from the state. I gave you guys kind of a summary of the grant and where everything ended up. And we need that $204,000 to kind of.
Well, this benefits the entire industrial park, not one entity.
Yes.
I'm good.
We need a motion on this?
Yes.
I'll make a motion. We forward this to council.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes as well. And Melissa, you're still there. Interfund transfer retail convention.
All right, so we are asking for an interfund transfer of $25,000 for the International Council of Shopping Centers Retail Recruitment Summit. And it would be split up among the different accounts that I have there. So we would take 20 do all of those admin categories.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.